communities and for those that are listening is to be technology agnostic. I've been part of communities where people would like argue about technology, which one is the best, which one should we go with, and all that. Like there's always this kind of argument about which technology is the best, which one is the future, and all that. But I'm also someone that I'm open to share. So it makes it possible for people to actually connect. So the key takeaway of social networks or the social media as a whole is the ability to create connections, and not just connections, but create connections around interest-based group. So now you have your NACOS social media platform, and the fact that different persons can actually connect with what you are doing on your social media platform. People that are interested in computing, people who are students, and people who are also in your university can actually connect, and that's what social media is making possible. And the truth is that social media has been an accelerator of development. Next slide. Social medias are particularly important because, first of all, they promote interaction, which I've already talked about, on different levels. Interactions on business, interactions from communities, interactions from next slide. It also helps to amplify human connection. The next slide. They are a catalyst for a knowledge-based economy. Now, when we talk about there's so much traction about, in a knowledge-based economy. Today's world is actually a knowledge-based economy because a lot of things that we do from businesses are driven by knowledge. Knowledge and expertise in artificial intelligence, knowledge and expertise in software development, knowledge and expertise in data-driven endeavors. So it is a knowledge-driven economy. And one of the things that social media and social networks has done is that it has created this leveling ground that allows information to be shared at almost the speed of light. Like we have so many communities, like Open Source Africa, for instance, has been doing a lot of events to try to promote open source. In fact, prior to 2009 and 2008, most of the softwares that we are enjoying today were mostly enterprise. An enterprise such that the technology and how it works was at the back end and then was shielded from the public. The only thing you could do is, could just do was maybe consume their services or just use their APIs to integrate it into your features. But people did not have access to source codes of so many of these things. The fact that open source has gotten so much traction. There's been so much attention in that direction of open source, and this has been aided because of social media. Literally, people who are extremely good at what they do are able to say, okay, this is what we are doing, and then they share it on social media, and it creates a knowledge economy around it. Social media has also given our minds the liberty to view the world from the lens of several perspectives. So I might have never traveled to a particular country, but I'm able to use social media to connect. Never traveled to more than 60, 70, 80 countries in the world, but wherever we are able to understand exactly what is going on in different places around the world, and we are able to use their own experiences to understand how those guys think, and also look at, could there be a way it can also benefit us here. So social media is also an accelerator of innovation. But despite all the benefits of social media and everything, social media also has some of its limitations. And that's what I'm going to highlight here and look at how the blockchain technology can also make it better on those aspects. Okay, so next slide. With its huge benefit, it also poses a lot of limitations. First of all, social networks are highly centralized. Controlling what's happening on any particular social media handle. There's always an organization controlling what's happening. It is not very inclusive, meaning that certain persons, maybe from their background, from where they are, who are not able to actually get the fullness of the dividend that the social media ecosystem actually offers. And that's most of it is mostly because there's shared wealth, for instance, on the social media platforms. But look at what's happening like on Facebook, for instance. If I use Facebook, for instance, businesses create ads on Facebook. People create different events on Facebook. Now, every single money that is created on the Facebook platform is channeled to a single organization that's using the software as a cash cow. So basically, everything is going to a single person. So only for a few content creators who are able to, create publicity on Facebook, and then they are also able to make some money. It's also an issue with censorship. Censorship in that because it is centralized, Mark Zuckerberg can wake up tomorrow and say, we have observed that this is an issue with what's happening on our media handle, and we have decided that from now on, Nigerians, we are not going to allow Nigerians videos to be monetized. And this is not what I'm telling you they want to do. This is something that is already happening. Of reasons that I heard um, Nigerian content creators can no more earn from their creation just because of some issues with the country. Another example, for instance, would have been okay. That is not a social network, but then it's just a payment gateway. It's PayPal. PayPal, for instance, Nigerians are not even allowed to like send money on or to like receive money on PayPal, but we can send money. And some other different platforms, just because these platforms are centralized. The issue with these centralized platforms is that they are censored by a particular organization. And it does not also promote wealth inclusion. Wealth inclusion, as I said before, finance controlled by a single organization. You are just there to create content that people are benefiting for, but there's no ecosystem for you to create content and also earn exactly from what you're creating. So people make posts and just talk. If you don't purposely say, okay, you build, what some people do on Facebook and some social media handles, that they build a following and then they use their following to sell a product that they are actually sharing. Okay, the next slide. So I Nigeria, where we had this Twitter ban, where the tweet of the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria was taken down on Twitter, which caused anger, and the platform was now banned in the country. And so many of us had to use other routes. Some people had to use VPNs to be able to like reroute their location so that they can trick their ISPs to allow them to have access to this is Twitter. So next slide. I just want to be fast so that we can have more interaction. So how is blockchain going to fix the loopholes in social networks? If we had had the conversation yesterday, probably now we understand that the blockchain is a decentralized ledger technology. So we can view it from the standpoint of a database. You can also view it from the standpoint of that it's a technology that is actually decentralized. So from the standpoint of decentralization, the blockchain is going to be a technology that's going to allow us to build systems that are not centralized, meaning that there's no single entity that controls the blockchain. If we take a quick search on social media, for instance, or on Google, we'll see some social media platforms that are really leveraging what is happening in this space. So you build a social media platform that is not controlled by any single entity, and people have control over what they're doing and it cannot be censored. The second thing is personalization. Personalization means, for instance, if I create, let's say, a content on Facebook, for instance, people can steal my content and post it on their own page, and just because they have more followers, people will respect them more, and he can claim that that was his idea, that I stole it. We have no authentic way of validating who owns what content, and so there's a lot of plagiarism. Another issue with what's happening on the social media space is transparency and governance. We Facebook, for instance, had so many legal battles with the United States government, where there are always conversations about what is really happening in the in Facebook. How are you using users' data? But in the blockchain ecosystem, because it is decentralized and there is no particular entity that is controlling what's happening, we can exactly know what is happening per time, and then it is more transparent because now we can tell exactly how our data is being, and our data can also be controlled and built in such a way that it is not we know exactly how it is basically being used depending on how the smart contract how they decide to write the smart contract. So, and also from the standpoint of governance, every single person has a say on the network, and no single entity has so much power to decide to say, okay, today we are going to ban you on a job, or we'll ban you just because you said something that violates our rules. So you can write smart contracts so that the algorithms are written in such a way that everybody knows exactly and say, okay, once you violate this kind of rule, the algorithm is going to do this. But in that case, we are transferring power, we are trusting an algorithm because an algorithm will stick to the rule instead of human being who will say, you know what you are doing does not really align with our beliefs. So we'll just remove you from what we are doing. Another part is also inclusion in the wealth economy. The wealth economy, to be sincere, next slide. So on the standpoint of decentralization, I will come back to the aspect of wealth economy. I'm going to talk about that more in detail. From the standpoint of decentralization, this is an example of a network which most of us who are computing students. Okay, I think it's jumping. Just take the arrow button left. Yeah. So from the standpoint of decentralization, for us who are already into the computing ecosystem, we understand this very well. We understand the difference between centralized networks, distributed networks, and decentralized networks. So the blockchain is not just a decentralized network; it's also decentralized and distributed because uh, because um, because every single person can um, conventional social media is just like what we are seeing here. It is a centralized system where there's a single entity at the center who is not only censoring what is being done. The person also has full control about on what is being done. The wealth in the ecosystem goes to a single entity at the center. So that center is where the database is, and every other node on the network is just sending requests. If you're a developer, we know very well that in every client and server side application, there's always what a post and a get. So you post, meaning that you send information in, and then you request, you get. So same thing also happens in this case. In every centralized network, there is a single database, and because it's a single database, a single point of failure, information can be hacked. Data blockchain powered social media ecosystem where it is centralized. There are thousands of nodes um, running simultaneously. As a result, there's no downside. I had a talk with some people today, and then I gave them an example. For instance, since Bitcoin was launched in 2009, and the developers, I think they left active development, like the earlier developers around 2013 or so. Now it's mostly community driven development. Since they left, since 2009 up until now, Bitcoin has had about a 99.99% uptime, meaning that there has not been any particular downtime. But then consider other conventional networks that we have, like Facebook. Because it's a single point of failure, it is possible for a node to have issue and it's going to affect the entire network. Last year, Facebook and all its other applications, WhatsApp, Instagram was down for over 6 hours. Twitter had that same issue either last year or year before last. So there's always downtime. But in a decentralized network aided by the blockchain, there is that single point of failure from depending on a single node or server is removed. The next one about personalization. Next one, personalization. So what does personalization do? In a social media ecosystem that's aided by the blockchain, what personalization does is that people can own actual digital assets. Ownership can be traced. Intellectual theft, things that is really going to power the personalization of the ecosystem is what I call tokenization of data. Tokenization of data is the fact that we can actually carry a piece of information and tokenize it in such a way that we can create an NFT representation for it. Just know who owns it per time. NFTs are not just about digital arts. Although that is like a very popular use cases, but there are other use cases for NFTs, because the idea is just a non-fungible token. In the blockchain ecosystem, we have two major types of tokens: fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens. Fungible tokens are tokens that can be divided. For instance, every cryptocurrency you see on the blockchain is a fungible token, meaning it can be divided, it can be broken down into change. So instead of sending you one ETH, the ETH now has about 18 decimal points. I can send you 0.0005 ETH. But for a non-fungible, I break it down, I've lost it. So it can only be represented in just a single way and a single way only. So in that case, on the back end, just like if you open your phone, you have songs on your phone, right? You have videos on your phone. If you go to the details and check the details about any app or any song or video you have on your phone, there's something we call a metadata. The metadata provides information about an actual data. For example, you see the date the song was sent to your phone. You see maybe the person or the device that sent it. Some device will allow you to see more information. You can even show you up to the name of the song you get and the size. That's what NFTs just do. NFTs is like there's this metadata on the blockchain that is linked to a particular asset. And the difference between Web3 and Web2 is that if I choose to send you information, for instance, what I'm doing is that I'm transferring the ownership of that particular digital asset to you. But the problem with Web2 and with current social media is that anytime I send you something, what I'm sending you is not the unique piece. I'm sending you a copy. So if I send you a song, for instance, I just sent you a copy of the song. And if I send it to 20%, all the 20% also have the same particular song. But that will not be able to work if you are using like a currency, for instance. So I cannot send you $10,000 and still have $10,000. I should be able to send you $10,000 and lose $10,000. So I'm transferring ownership to an address that's connected to your private key. Same thing also with digital asset in the digital space. The same idea can be used in the social media world, because there's so much plagiarism. People steal people's songs, people steal people's property and claim ownership, and then they don't say who owned it or who doesn't own it. But in a blockchain social media powered world, it will be such that any content you create can be linked to a particular address, and you can choose to anytime transfer ownership. So nobody can steal or claim that this thing belongs to them. You get. Next slide. Example of personalization. Remember that the first tweet on Twitter was tweeted by Jack Dorsey. That was in March 21st, 2006. And what he wrote was just setting up Twitter. Now, he sold this particular tweet, I think last year, for about over $2 million. He sold his first tweet as an NFT. Now, that was his first tweet on Twitter, but now it belongs to someone else. This kind of personalization is only something, although it is possible to, use encryption processes to build a back-end system that makes it possible to allow this kind of ownership and transfer to be done by people. But then it is not going to be a foolproof process, because it is going to still be centralized. That's why building something like this on a blockchain makes sure, first of all, it is decentralized. It allows personalization to happen, and then people can actually own what they want. So I can decide to say today that this post I made that's gaining traction, I can decide to sell it to someone else, and that person becomes the owner of that particular post. So there is a lot of ownership. Someone cannot just steal. If you steal a digital art, you can always know who actually owns it on the blockchain. So in a social media powered world, where the blockchain, where the core functionality are running on the blockchain, it will be such that those kind of issues are removed, where people are stealing, plagiarism of content, and so on and so forth. Next slide. Transparency and governance. How many of us have heard about the DAO? Okay, so probably we've all heard about a DAO. So a DAO, D-A-O, means a decentralized autonomous organization. So what the DAO does is that it allows people to interact, communities to interact and build. Basically, just allows people, organizations, or individuals to build communities on top of the blockchain. So that there are several DAOs. There are some DAOs that their work is just to fund ideas. One of those DAOs, I work in a community that we build blockchain related products for clients, and we also take care of communities. And I remember our first cohort of developers. I think we reached out for. Sorry, I just lost power. All right, so I'll just take down my video. So I remember that in our first cohort, we had this issue. We had this issue where we needed to train developers with a mobile academy based in India, but the cost was very high. So what we did was that we wrote a proposal on a DAO, the Cardano project Catalyst. We put up our description there, and we were able to get funding of over, I think, almost or more than about $20,000 for the community, and that was what we were able to use to train developers on the ecosystem, and use the same money to also run the community. Now, this kind of amount of money is not really available so much in the third world. But one of the things that the blockchain has done, it has allowed so much wealth to be transferred to the developing world. Centralized systems are built in such a way that money goes to a single entity. But we have never seen a time, it has been a long time in history where we have seen where there's so much transferring wealth. Between June 2020 and July 2021, over $100 billion or so moved out of Africa and into Africa. But this is a continent you feel probably there's no money, there's no access to finance, but that was exactly what happened on the continent. You get, and all this has been made possible by the blockchain. So the transparency and governance part will be such that we can build a social media that runs just like a DAO, where the community can decide to elect who will become the CEO, not just a board meeting kind of thing. The community can come together and elect who will become our next CEO, who will become our next CTO, who will lead the development team and all that. And also, participation in the community is incentivized, just like in the Project Catalyst. I was once a community advisor. So like each time you are able to join the meeting and everything, in fact, you provide your wallet address in the community. Based on your participation, you are being paid tokens for your participation, and people are earning money. I read a post of recent on was it Discord? I think it was Discord also, where a guy talked about how he got a token on the Cardano blockchain. We got airdrops, and by 6 hours later, those airdrops were worth over $18,000, which according to him is more than what he earns in, that's in an African country. So you can just imagine. So there is really, really so much happening in this space, and blockchain can actually make this even more possible. So the next slide. Yeah, so this was what I was talking about. Like in this example now, you see that Africa, the amount of BTC and other native tokens that were actually traded across the continent beats most of other continents in the world. One would say that okay, there is not so much wealth in Africa, but look at P2P transactions. Africa even ranked more than Asia. We ranked more than Europe. We ranked more than Japan. The truth of the matter is that there is a serious gap in the developing world, and what's happening is that most of the developed worlds are making it even difficult for the developing world to be included in the global wealth. So we've had more millionaires in the last 1 year from the blockchain space than from any other space. Why? Because not because other space there's no wealth, but because the ecosystem is decentralized and inclusive. Anybody can join in. Try to open an account on some on some finance gateways, and you have very serious issues. I remember there was this time I did a job with a client, and then I had to receive pay in dollars. It was a very big issue for me. So how to receive the money was the problem, because the organization was like, I was like, okay, why not just convert it to a cryptocurrency, like let me say a stable coin, and then send it to my account. They were like, they have to balance out their account and so on and so forth. I was like, okay, what about wire transfer? They were like, it was really going to cost. Is there no way to just use a social media app, an app like PayPal? And of course, there we were again. PayPal was not supported. could not make it possible. So I had to rally around before I could solve the problem. And there are a lot of other platforms. There's even a platform, I think it was in World Remit, or is it TransferWise? I checked your recent. I was also trying to receive money too in dollars, and then I checked. Then they were like, Nigeria is not currently supported here. So that is one of the issues we have. And in the social media network ecosystem, blockchain is really going to help us to have an inclusive economy where we can earn and gain wealth from the value we share. Next slide. I think I should be almost rounding up. Yes, so the metaverse, and this is where I'm going to conclude. And I think this is going. One thing about Mark Zuckerberg, I feel, is why I really respect him is that he's someone that knows where the future is going to, and is able to see the future, and he wants to own the future. So probably if you want to really understand the metaverse, there's a movie I'd advise you to go and watch. Ready Player One. Ready Player One. That movie is really going to give an idea of what the
Sorry, spell
metaverse is.
the name.
Ready. Okay, READY. Ready. Then Player One.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you can just go and watch that movie, and it's going to really give you an understanding of what the metaverse is really about. So the metaverse is not just about blockchain. The metaverse is a conglomerate of technologies that allows for an immersive experience. People talk about blockchain, Web3, Web3, Web3. For me, Web3 is not just about blockchain only. Web3 is about all the technologies that is going to make the web immersive. I call Web3 the immersive web, where the experience of the internet and the digital space is collapsed to the physical world such that they are almost one and the same thing. So for someone who wants to go into Web3, whether you can choose to either go through it through a route as a blockchain developer, you can also choose to go through it as an AR um, designer, like someone that creates designs and models with augmented reality. So augmented reality is involved, virtual reality is involved, extended reality is involved, blockchain is involved. So what does the blockchain really do to the metaverse? Why I brought the idea of the metaverse is that our social networks are expanding to become immersive, meaning you can wear an Oculus eyeglass, or you can just wear any kind of visual aid, and then it looks as if you can experience this digital world that looks so real. You can walk in it as if you're walking physically. Some games are already making that possible. So this is where social networks are evolving into. But because already in our current social media ecosystem we already have problems, the biggest problem being the fact that, first of all, wealth is not evenly distributed. So the same racial issues, the same poverty that we're experiencing around the world, the same thing that we'll still be experiencing in Decentraland, because Africans will not be able to afford for land or build some properties in Decentraland. There's also I don't know if we know of Decentraland. So Decentraland is allowing people to buy lands, can buy lands, own properties in the digital space inside the metaverse. So we will see have that same issue. But with blockchain, especially with like the DeFi, it's allowing people to be able to, you can just take tokens and get almost, there are some that give you almost like 20 to 40% return on your investment at the end of the year. This is unheard of. The average person, if you put your money in the bank is also a centralized space. Your bank can wake up one day and decide to freeze your account because they are suspecting illegal activities. You can just receive 10 million, and your bank blocks the transaction and ask you to come and verify how that kind of amount entered your account, because they know that they've checked your account history. The highest that's always entered is always maybe 500,000, and then all of a sudden 50 million entered. Block your account. But not knowing that probably you did an investment of some time ago that just paid you, and then you have to stay sometimes for weeks. Sometimes they can even move some money out, and because you don't have any invoices, you cannot go to court, you don't have anybody to help you. So that is the issue with a centralized ecosystem. With a decentralized space, everybody has access to information. The decentralized space does not know whether you are an American, whether you are an English citizen. All it knows that these are just participants in a network. So one of the things that blockchain is going to do, especially in as the social network space evolves, is just like we see in this interaction, in this video, for example, we are seeing a lady in the picture with a yellow, is it an orange dress, and some people wearing clothes and all that. So in that space, companies, for instance, Nike can decide to build a virtual house inside the metaverse, and in that virtual house they can put their items, maybe their boots, their shirts, their shoes, on display inside that virtual shop. So when you put in your eyeglass and you're inside the metaverse, the metaverse knows that this is your avatar. This is not the real, this is your avatar. You enter there with an avatar that you choose. So when you go in there, you now decide to go and buy something. So what is going to take care of that buying process? I decided to say, okay, I want to buy this boot in the metaverse. I purchased the boot. What I just simply did was that I actually moved a token. So I paid with a token from my wallet that's connected to the metaverse, which is controlled by the blockchain, making it very secure, and people can is and it's almost impossible to be hacked. So I connect to the ecosystem, I plug into it, and I purchase a boot. That boot, since it is a unique asset, digital asset on the blockchain, it is like an NFT. It now becomes my own. So anytime I can make my avatar to change to that particular boot in the metaverse. And not just that, because I've paid for it, the company also receives the amount of tokens paid to their wallet, and they can transfer the actual boot to me in my house. So now we're seeing a collapse of the digital world and the physical world through the metaverse, where the social media ecosystem has evolved from screen interaction to immersive interaction. And one of the things that blockchain is going to do is, first of all, number one, as I conclude, is governance, allowing everybody to be able to have control over the network, not just a few persons. Two, it's going to allow for personalization, meaning that we can own our assets in the space and not be afraid of theft. There's no plagiarism. Three, it is decentralized, meaning that it is not controlled by any single entity and we can trust it. The fourth thing that's also going to do is going to be an inclusive inclusion of wealth. Imagine if you can create an NFT of you can build a house in the metaverse, for instance, and then people come, because this is like we are still chatting, same chatting. I can put in my glass and I see you and we are chatting, and then I just decide to buy a piece of land inside the metaverse. So that land could have been maybe bought by somebody some months back who is in Africa, who just saved a little amount of money to buy that land, and then he is able to sell that land for millions of dollars, and nobody knows his identity, nobody knows who he is in the real world, and he makes that money and then he uses it to spend in the physical world. So it is a technology that's going to stretch the capabilities of our current social networks. So social networks are evolving and it's going to become more immersive than we see, and the instrument or the tool that's going to make it um, more secure is the blockchain. All right. So I don't know if okay. The next slide. All right. So I think this is like where I conclude. So blockchain technology might become the defining technology of the future, especially because it has unique building blocks that allows us to build trust enabling infrastructures. Where do we go from here? Where we go from here will be a defining moment that future generations will be grateful for. And understanding how it all fits in would go a long way to enable everyone to be a part of these alternate possibilities. So we are in the beginning days of a revolution, and there's no better time to um, seize the opportunity to be part of the ecosystem than now. So I don't know if there's any question or if people are dropping questions which I can answer.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate for that impact. I think I see it right now. I hope you can hear me clearly. Okay,
Yes, I can hear you.
can you take this up while I do something? Yes.
Actually, for now, I actually have a question because I've been thinking of something, having a social network for the sorry, who's that? Hello.
I think there is a lot of noise on the background.
Yeah. Okay. So, like a kind of social network for Nigeria and its environment where government, projects, finance comes there and a whole lot of things. Sure. But the problem is, my question now is, how do we ensure that only Nigerians, like, is there any mode of like ensuring that only one user like register on the blockchain, or do you get my point? Like a means of identifying,
Okay. Oh,
just
yeah, I get.
just to ensure that
So
just to ensure that
I think I had this conversation with someone some time back where he was thinking of like that the fact that blockchain can actually revolutionize voting. You get, where it can make Nigerians to be able to vote from the comfort of their phones. And the beautiful thing is that since it is on the blockchain, it is secure. You get, it is trustless, meaning that we cannot be afraid of the fact that probably the government bribed somebody. Once it's on the blockchain, it's on the blockchain, and it's very almost impossible to, if not almost immutable, so to say. So so what some people do is that they use centralized gateways with and power it with decentralized solutions. So for instance, building a social media network now, you will not want to save most of your user data totally on the blockchain, because remember it is transparent. I can just go on your smart contract and I can see people's personal details like their password and all that. So what some people do is that they build a back end system that handles most of users data, most of users information, most of users um, private details, and then the core functionality that handles their money, the core functionality that handles their right to vote, is now onboarded on the smart contracts that run on the blockchain. So in that way, you are able to, you can, it's just like to do something like that, you need to work with, let's say, the federal government. So what you do is that you can build, if you want to build totally on the blockchain now, for instance, there is something we call oracles. The blockchain is not connected to the internet, it is self-contained because it runs on several nodes that are distributed and they are communicating, and they do the work of checking each other. What the blockchain simply means is that if I tamper the information in my own in my own node or inside my own server, it is broadcasted to all the other nodes. All the nodes will also begin to check their own database to confirm whether that information is valid. And based on the overwhelming, if we have a 60 to 40 decision, then the 60 is going to win it, because at the end of the day, more nodes agree that this was the data, but this guy tried to change the data. So it is going to revert the entire blockchain, and everything is going to go back to how it was. It's going to correct itself. So that is what makes it immutable. So you can build a smart contract that has an oracle. An oracle is a proxies that allows for smart contracts to communicate with external sites or external data. So you can work with, let's say, the National Identity Management, is it Commission or Council, NIMC. And what NIMC is going to do is that they are going to allow you to get access to probably APIs that makes you to get people's identity number. Then you get this identity number via the, what do you call it, via the oracle, and so it gets into the blockchain. So when someone wants to open an account and then become a voter, and you want to be sure that they are Nigerians, you now ask them for that number, and then they're able to check it into the smart contract. So the smart contract will now use oracles could help your device be able to communicate with
Boss, I carry that.
just like how
Yes, sir.
some apps already use NIMC's this data to verify people and all that. So if it's possible that they make it open or make it accessible, you can use an oracle to get that data.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate that.
Good evening, sir. I
Okay,
also have a question.
okay.
Yeah, I've been wondering how the mechanism, like basically, I've been wondering the mechanism behind NFTs. Does it have any physical value? Like there's a project I've been
Behind what? Behind what?
NFTs,
Okay.
non-fungible tokens. What's the mechanism
Okay,
behind
so
it?
okay, so I shared, I don't know, probably you missed that part. And so the mechanism behind NFTs is the fact that NFTs are not really, really like so much of a. I know that there's a bit of hype, but beyond what people are just trying to make quick money and all that from NFTs. But there are so many other use cases for NFTs. So 2 weeks ago, I organized an event with a medical doctor who is trying to use the idea of NFTs to solve problems in the medical sector. So, if I ask you if you have um what is the best song on your phone? Like the best song on your phone. You said which song?
Let it go.
Okay, let it go.
Yeah, one.
So if you like check that
Yeah,
song,
one.
yeah, if you check that's your song, let it go. If you check details, you see it will show you the name of the song. Sometimes it will show you who sang it. It will show you the date the song was sent to your phone. It, it will show you the size of the song. It will show you the location where that song is. It will show you so many other details. Depending on the device you use, it will show you more. That information that shows you all the information about that particular song is called a metadata. So NFTs can be anything, but what underlies the NFTs is the metadata. So that metadata is what is really communicating with the blockchain directly. So anytime someone creates an NFT, mines an NFT, that NFT, because I told you that blockchain is one of the technologies that enables for personalization, meaning we can know who owns what. Now, if you send that your let it go to your sister, you will you lose your copy? You will not lose your copy. You will still have your own. She will now receive her own, but the date will now change when she received it. But all the information is still the same. She will now receive it. Nobody knows who was it. Now, if you keep sending that song over 5 years, almost anybody will have the song in their device, and then it will be impossible. It will be difficult or almost impossible for us to know who particularly was the first person that started selling the song. You get. So what NFTs are doing is that now anything can be tokenized. It's a tokenized economy. I have a friend who is building a real estate company that allows for tokenization of landed property. So they launched it. They were launching it. I think it was it Burkina Faso or Cote d'Ivoire. So they're working with the land registry system of the government that gives them access to all the land records. Now they now know who owns this land. They're now able to create a digital map that you can see who owns land and is now tokenized. Meaning they just take it, all the MOU, the memorandum of understanding with the signatures of the people, the owners can sign it, and you can use it as a collateral for loans. So you can get millions of dollars if that land is seen as valuable, and gives you access to instant loans. So you just want to access loan, you can say, okay, I want to use this my NFT of a land. So anybody can use that property later and say this was the owner before, and he moved it to
That's
us. So behind the back end of every NFT, you know the address of the owner, you know the address of who he has now sent it to, and all that. So basically anything can be tokenized. Currently, people are rushing to buy digital art,
yes,
but you
man.
must
No
also be
problem.
careful in buying digital art, because you can buy some digital art that
Yes.
once you buy them
No, man. What I
in
was
less than
saying.
how many days it loses value and it's not as valuable as you once
No
thought.
problem. No problem.
So it's also a very volatile market because people are trying to sell. Sometimes people are selling things that don't even have value anymore. So we look at projects based on the organization, what is their goal, what is their vision, not just anybody who just wakes up, create anything and all that. So there's a lot, but if you research the space, NFT goes beyond just digital art. Basically, anything can be tokenized. So the idea is just it allows for data to be personalized and you can trace ownership.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no. Okay,
All right. So is that
thank
all?
you very much. We really appreciate that. In case you have a question, please kindly drop your question. Let's start dropping the questions in case you have a questions. So before we round up this session.
So hello.
Yes, we are with you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So what kind of community would you advise for someone who wants to like go into blockchain and then the guidelines, the courses people should
Sorry, I
study?
lost the question. You said, what kind of community can I do?
Like, can you suggest to someone who wants to?
Okay, for like someone that wants to get started in blockchain. Okay, so I don't know if I really got the question. Whether you're saying, okay, what community do I advise for someone that wants to get started in blockchain? So currently, I manage a community where we